Today's video is brought to you in part by the channel MTG Anarchy, where we take a look into the world of Magic the Gathering and throw a little bit of mischief and chaos into the mix. Welcome to MTG Anarchy Discussions, where we discuss things that are on my mind when it revolves around Magic the Gathering. My name is Michael, it is great to see you here. Today's topic of discussion revolves around Fetchlands, what they mean to me, as well as how I see them in the game of Magic the Gathering. But before we jump into this discussion, if you haven't already done so, and this is your first time here, or you just haven't done it already, I personally would appreciate if you could subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can keep up to date with any new videos that do come out here on MTG Anarchy. I would personally appreciate it because I want my channel to grow and I want people to see that there is interesting topics to talk about as well as interesting news. So please go ahead and subscribe as well as hit that bell notification. But thank you again so much for watching the video, and let's just jump right into the topic of discussion for today, Fetchlands. If you've ever played Magic the Gathering, which I'm sure most individuals watching this video have played Magic the Gathering in any sort of way, even way back in the day, you've probably heard of the term Fetchland. For those who have not heard of this term, the definition of Fetchlands are as follows. Fetchlands are lands that can be sacrificed to search their controller's library for a land of a specific basic land type. Aside from allowing multicolored decks to selectively play a desired land type, Fetchlands also remove a land from the library, reducing the likelihood of drawing a land instead of a more useful card later in the game, when mana is no longer an issue. I mean, throughout Magic the Gathering's history, there have been a plethora of Fetchlands that have been printed. For example, we have the tap land Fetchlands, like Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. Now, these Fetchlands allow players to go ahead, tap and sack these Fetchlands if they're on the battlefield, to go ahead and get another basic land of any type and put that land onto the battlefield tapped. Then they go ahead and shuffle their library. Now, a lot of players actually like using these lands, especially when it comes to multicolored decks. From the commander standpoint, I usually see this run in multicolored decks, but popular decks like Lord Windgrace or Tatiova, I mean, those types of decks, they utilize these types of Fetchlands pretty well because they want lands to come onto the battlefield in general. So really good effects when it comes to these specific types of Fetchlands. Now, the next type of Fetchland we are going to be discussing are considered to be specialty Fetchlands. One card in specific that comes to mind is Fabled Passage, the card that was released in Throne of Eldraine as of recently. Fabled Passage reads, if you tap and sacrifice Fabled Passage, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Then, if you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. Now, the reason why I consider this to be a specialty Fetchland is because, yes, you're doing what an Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse is doing. However, if you control 4 or more lands, including the land that you bring out, you can go ahead and untap that land. Honestly, this is a must include to run in any type of deck that revolves around multiple types of colors, even one colors. In general. Honestly, I think this is just a good land card all around. Now, the final category that we're going to discuss when it comes to Fetchlands is Blood Fetchlands. Now, when it comes to Blood Fetchlands, this category revolves around having to pay life in order to get a land. What I consider to be a Blood Fetchland is, for example, the ally or the enemy Fetchlands. One example is Marsh Flats, where if you tap it and you pay 1 life and sacrifice Marsh Flats, you may search your library for a Plains or a Swamp card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Another example of this would be the more recent Prismatic Vista that came from Modern Horizons. Now, with that one, if you tap and pay 1 land and sacrifice Prismatic Vista, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Now, the reason why I am considering these to be Blood Fetchlands is because in order to get that specific land that you need, you have to pay a life in order to do so. Now, these types of Fetchlands are up for discussion for today. Now, my opinion on these Blood-like Fetchlands are that they are very powerful in general. I believe that people will not disagree with that statement. The reason why I state this is because unlike Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, or even Fabled Passage to a degree, you are potentially driving a land and putting it straight onto the battlefield untapped, ready to go. And this is possibly one of many reasons why people look for these types of fetch lands. They want to speed up their deck, they want to make sure it's being played a lot more effectively and efficiently, and so you'll see multi-card formats like Modern or Legacy or even Commander in general for a single card format use these types of fetch lands because they want to go ahead and use the most efficient types of spells. With this line of thought, there's always going to be a supply and demand. However, with fetch lands, there's more demand than supply. With a lot more players being introduced within the game itself, there are a lot more players that are looking to get these types of lands, especially when they're wanting to play these types of formats. That itself is where the demand comes into play. But what about the supply aspect of it? When it comes to supply, I believe truly there is a lack thereof when it comes to these specified fetch lands. I mean, unless you were available back then to get these fetch lands firsthand, or you're cracking open boxes or have them in collections or even in decks that you're using now, you're not really going to be able to get fetch lands, these specific types of fetch lands, unless you pay an absorbent amount of price. Because unless you have hundreds upon hundreds of dollars to get these from secondhand retailers or the new Secret Lair Ultimate Edition, which is just the Fetchland edition for enemy Fetchlands, you will not be able to get your hands on these. Which even then, there is still going to be a lack of supply because of the fact there's a lack of print. There is less amount of cards out there, less amount of Fetchlands for individuals than individuals want. That is supply versus demand. There is less supply but more demand for these specified cards, these specified Fetchlands. Now that gets us to our next part in this discussion, which is price. Now, when it comes to these Fetchlands in specific, we're looking at these types of Fetchlands that are priced anywhere between, let's say, $80 currently, clear up to the hundreds. I mean, that's for just one Fetchland. And if you're looking to go ahead and play in, let's say, a multicolored format like Modern or Legacy or Pauper, honestly, to even get a playset of each land, of each fetch land, it's going to cost you hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to get them, depending on the version you're going to want to get. Which, let's actually discuss about that one in particular. Let's take, for example, the Secret Lair Ultimate Edition and the 5 enemy Fetchlands. When it comes to the Secret Lair Ultimate Edition, when Wizards announced it with Tolarian Community College, which again, awesome channel, amazing channel, check them out if you haven't already done so, they stated with the Secret Lair that these Secret Lairs would be around a little over $165 to $200. Not exact words, again, they were comparing it to a product, but that was the average of how much that product was. So you could say it's around $165 to $200. Now, when this was announced, their partners, which I'm not going to go ahead and name their partners, because I think a lot of individuals who watch Magic the Gathering and purchase Magic the Gathering cards already know who their partners are. They got this information and decided, you know what? These cards are going to be worth more. These Secret Lair editions are going to be worth more than what Wizards is saying. So we're going to go ahead and suggest people pay $350 to $400 just to pre-order these Secret Lairs. Then jumps in the whales or just regular buyers. They're looking at that Secret Lair, they're like, you know what, this isn't worth that much money, so we're gonna go ahead and get just the regular cards for much cheaper, because we see that is that much cheaper. This then brings up the retailers that aren't associated with the Wizards of the Coast, say, you know what, I'm losing money because these cards are valued at this price now rather than what they were. So I'm going to go ahead and follow suit and raise the price because that is how much these cards are actually worth. And to me, this is why, in my own opinion, why we're at this price point. And to this point, I will say that even though Wizards themselves state they do not acknowledge the secondary market, there must have been individuals within Wizards that looked at this and were like, you know what? No, The secondary market does matter, that's why we're pricing these as such. Which I get, they are a company, they understand a little bit more about what they want to price their product at, and that makes sense. This then brings up a proper question to ask. And this is just a question that keeps coming to mind when it comes to these specified fetchlands. Are these specified fetchlands, these blood fetchlands, truly needed to play Magic the Gathering? I mean, truly think about that one for a second. Now, these fetchlands, the enemy or ally fetchlands, aren't in a standardized format, and Wizards of the Coast had stated that they will not reprint them in a standardized product, so that makes sense from that standpoint, so standard is off the table. Also in Pioneer, and this is something to think about, they've been banned in that specified format as well, so Pioneer doesn't need them. That's another format off the table. And in another type of format that really doesn't need them, I believe, is Pauper. Pauper focuses on common and uncommon cards. And from what I'm looking at, especially with the fetchlands, the ally and enemy fetchlands, they're considered rares. So those cannot be played in the Pauper format. Or if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments down below, but again, that's what I'm just seeing. And with, let's say, Brawl, for example, it's a single card format, but again, since that's a standardized Commander-esque format, it's still standard, so fetchlands cannot be within that format. So really, the only formats that these fetchlands are really viably needed in is Modern, Legacy, and Commander. I will say for the more competitive-like aspects of these formats, yes, these cards are potentially needed, if not needed in general. But on the other hand, if you're just trying to play casually with friends and family and individuals across from you, unless you're trying to be more of a competitive deck, you don't really need fetchlands. So we could actually argue that those who are actually looking for fetchlands are individuals that are looking for a more competitive experience. But to me, they're not a necessity to play the game. I mean, I personally play casual Commander, so it's something that I would like a fetchland, but I don't need it to play the game. So in my opinion, I would say that unless you want to play competitively, you do not need Blood-esque fetchlands to play the game. Now, of course, these are my thoughts and my opinions, so if you have something that you'd like to say on the matter when it comes to fetchlands, let me know in the comments down below. But other than that, I believe that with fetchlands, are they an essential, important aspect to Magic? And to me, for some, if you're playing competitively and you're looking for the cards and you're just trying to get into a competitive-esque format, then I would say yes, they are definitely needed. But for many of us out there, for many different formats, unless you're a collector of sorts or in any of these types of formats, they're not necessarily needed. Now, here is my bottom line when it comes to the fetchland dilemma. I personally believe that fetchlands aren't a necessity when playing Magic the Gathering. I personally believe that. But at the same time, to many who play in these competitive formats and want to have these, they are a necessity. I believe they are a part of Magic's history in general, and that some individuals who want to play competitively want to play with these cards, so they are a necessity. I will say there is a lower supply than to demand, so if you guys are considering adding these, including these in, let's say, other than a secret lair, put these in your next Modern Horizons. Put these in your next Mystery Boosters. Put these even in Commander Legends. Honestly, those are products that you guys are potentially looking to, Commander's Legends especially, that aren't a standardized product that people would want to purchase and buy. Honestly, I would say for sure put them in the next Mystery Booster, since that did sell so well and a lot of people want it. Honestly, to me, it just makes sense because you have a wider range of individuals wanting to get these fetchlands, but there's less likely of a chance for them to get those fetchlands. It still sells your product, but at the same time, it allows more of that specified card to be printed. But to me, those are my opinions when it comes to the fetchland dilemma.
And I appreciate any of your comments down below if you have other thoughts when it comes to these types of topics. But that was your topic discussion of today for MTG Anarchy discussions here on MTG Anarchy. Now, before you go, I actually would appreciate it if you do like these types of videos to like and share this video so I know more people would want to see these types of videos. Also, that way it gets out into the algorithm so more people can actually go ahead and see these types of videos. It would help my channel out as well. Also, like I said earlier, if you haven't already done so, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit the bell notification so you could keep up to date with any new videos that do come out here on MTG Anarchy. And finally, if you are financially stable and you want to go ahead and support somebody other than myself or support something other than myself, please go ahead and support your local game stores. I know we are all one community and we should help each other as long as we are financially stable. So go buy your local LGS if you have time, or order product from them online or any way you can. It would really help them, and honestly, I believe to me it helps out the community in general. But thank you so much for watching. This is Michael from MTG Anarchy with your MTG Anarchy discussions. I thank you for your time. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you tomorrow.